All right, what is up, everybody? This is Brandon Lindsay with the Rehabbers Playbook. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Mr. Chuck Glover. I've been looking forward to this call for a while, Chuck. How are you today?
Blessed in many ways. I'm doing fantastic, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because I don't give it a choice.
That's right.
Every day, up, down, in between, you make something out of it. So doing fantastic.
I love it. Well, we're going to be on that thread a lot today about being blessed, about, accomplishing your goals and doing it with a good positive mentality. And, I'm obviously going to preface this call with your presentation at Dealmaker. I've been wanting to get you on a call for a while. I don't know if you saw, I had Steven on a call. Uh, that was probably November of last year, so not too long ago.
I'm
But
proud of that. I'm proud of that boy. I tell you, he's my inspiration.
you kidding me? That kid, that guy, I say kid because I'm thinking of it through your lens right now. But he is just an inspiration to everybody. And
Yeah.
that, I don't know if you watched that podcast. If you haven't, it's definitely worth a watch because, after these, I usually clip out some scenes, I guess, to put on
Mhm.
shorts for YouTube. And I clipped 15 different moments in that. And I still carry some of his advice every single day into my
Great,
work, which
great.
how to be productive, how to think of everything one step at a time. I mean, that's always worth a good reminder. And anyway, I could speak forever about Steven. His success is just mind-blowing to me.
It
Uh,
is. It is.
but, I wanted to do a couple things with you. One is get on a call with you like this, but another is I still want to take you out to coffee or something to talk about lending because one of my goals this year is to get into lending. Um, but once we had Dealmaker and I saw that presentation, I was like, stop everything because I need to share his story with as many people as possible. And it's not even just your story, right? It's your energy and your passion and just your mindset. So if I was telling you earlier, if I could share this with one other person, I'll be successful and hopefully it'll be more than one. Hopefully we'll get your again, your story, your energy out to the world as much as possible.
Hey, I'm here for you.
I love it. And I
Like I said, I
appreciate it.
appreciate the opportunity very much.
I appreciate it. Well,
Because that's what it's about. It's about all of us together in this investing world in the community, lifting each other up, cooperation, collaboration. That's what it's about.
absolutely. And that was the whole title of your presentation was team-based investing. So I'd love to talk about that today, what that means to you. But let's start at the top. First of all, let's do an introduction. If you don't mind giving everybody kind of a brief overview of who you are, where you're from, what you do for in real estate and for other people.
Sure, and you can, feel free to interject if I go off course. But I'm
Oh,
an
I'm
old
giving
school
you the
teacher.
wheel, man.
I taught I taught school for a number of years. I was a school teacher for 13 years, a school administrator for 14 years. So that's kind of my roots and where I'm from. I'm born in Roanoke, born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia, moved to Richmond in 1971. It's kind of funny. I was telling somebody the other day something about investing since 70. And they looked at me with big eyes and said, "You've been investing for like 50 years." And I said, "No, 70 years old." So, and I'm 75 now. So, so I haven't been investing long, but an old school teacher, started my own business. The going was tough. When you're unemployed, another name for being unemployed, consultant. So I was a consultant.
Hey, I call myself a consultant sometimes. Maybe
So
I'm
you're
a
unemployed.
right.
But anyway, so it was kind of tough getting started. So I ended up taking another job,
Mhm.
another W-2 instead of just being a because I wanted to have my own business for years and years, for decades, years and years and years as a school teacher. But anyway, and I had two or three attempts at it that didn't really work out well. It was half-hearted attempts, I'll admit. Started consulting, being a little tough, so I ended up taking another job. Then after that, then a layoff, then another job, then a layoff over a short period of time, a few years. But anyway, So the opportunity came to get into investing, and maybe we can get into that a little more detail in a minute. But so
Sure.
about 5 years ago, I started learning about this, investing thing. uh, so I thought, well, you know how when you're new to investing, you don't know anything, the advice you hear is start off as a wholesaler.
Oh yeah.
So I said, that's what I'll do because I don't need any money. I did that for about a week, and I said, wholesaling maybe isn't my thing.
Hey,
So
I'm with you.
again, I have to admit, it's a fantastic way to get into the business. I'll have to admit my attempts were kind of half-hearted.
Mhm.
Um, then I thought, well, if you don't do wholesaling, then the next step you have to do is flipping. You just have to progress that way. So I tried that for a couple of months, and I didn't have a lot of success there. And I went and looked at a house and lost $2,500. So I thought, maybe this isn't for me. Uh, I was at a real estate. One piece of advice I did get early on was attend the real estate meetups and RIA meetings.
Right.
I attended one. I attended two or three, but this one particular one, there were about 60 or 70 investors in the room, and the gentleman leading the meeting, welcomed everybody to the meeting, starting off. Let's see who was here tonight. So, how many flippers do we have in the room? Lots of hands go up all over the room.
Oh yeah.
How many wholesalers? Bunches of hands. Like there were about 60 or 70 investors. So bunches of hands go up. How many money lenders in the room? One hand went up, not mine, but somebody else's. One hand went up. And I thought to myself, why compete against all these other people when there's not a lot of competition in that area?
Smart move.
So at the end of the meeting, people flocked to this lender. It happened to be Fred Krause. Fred and Marie Krause. A lot of people know them.
Oh yeah.
Well known. They've been doing it for 15 years or so, give or take, as
Mhm.
well as being landlords, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, and I got their card too. And then I gave them a call the next day. And this is what a lot of investors miss: the follow up.
Oh
They
yeah.
go to these meetings, they meet people, and then they're just another name and a list of 1,000 contacts.
Yep.
I followed up, took him out to lunch, and he spent him and Marie, for the price of a couple of barbecues. He spent like 2 hours, 2.5 hours with me, just showering me with information about how do you even get started. He asked the tough questions that I had no clue as to the answer to. What kind of forms do you use? Do you use this procedure and that procedure? And do you so and so and so? And how do you vet borrowers? I'd never vetted a borrower, I had no clue. And he
Yep.
just shared with me. And I told him, I don't know. I don't shared with me ideas for forms and everything to get me started. So that's kind of excuse me, that was kind of my introduction. Well, there was an introduction earlier, but that's kind of how I got into the investing business and kind of landed on private money lending. And I'll have to admit, at my age, 70 years old, right? I wasn't up for all this hammering and nailing and chasing contractors around, like flippers, chasing contractors around and keeping up with all this. And I thought, you just don't get any more passive than this.
Hey,
So
I
that was
don't
kind of
blame
my
you.
introduction.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm 31. Sometimes I need reminders of how old I am, but 31, and at my age, I don't like chasing contractors and swinging a hammer. I'm consistently trying to get closer to you, which is funny because I've been doing this for 7 years. It took me probably 6 of those years, just recently, maybe 7, to realize that the natural evolution and the best evolution is to start finding myself in your seat as a lender. So it's
Mm.
really smart that you skipped all those intermediaries because I think, and we'll get into it, people think, oh, to be a lender, I have to make all the money to get to that point. And, there's ways
Oh,
of using other people's money, right? And then just being the middleman and just making connections and being a great networker like you are.
well,
I heard
thanks,
a couple
brother.
things in that story. Number one was or in that introduction, number one was humility in the fact that when you sat down with Fred, you knew that you didn't know anything. And I think a lot of people are scared of the follow-up because they're scared of being exposed as not knowing anything and being so green. And one of the biggest things I see that separates successful people from unsuccessful people are the people who are willing to say, hey, I don't know everything, and say, hey, look, I'm willing to learn. I don't know anything. I know 10% of the 100% I need to know, if that, I just know how to maybe write notes and find people and talk to people, which honestly could be a lot of the process. So what do you say to people who might be nervous about being so green in the business that they don't necessarily want the mentorship, or they don't feel comfortable with the mentorship of somebody like Fred, who's very willing to help you out?
That is, first of all, the key to more to massive achievement,
Hmm.
which is this is kind of where my formula for massive achievement that I developed. This is kind of, it hinges on all this.
Hmm.
Other people, keep in mind that other experienced investors want to meet you, the new investor.
Love it.
You have something that I want to, and I'm not saying I'm this experienced, seasoned investor. I'm still a babe in the woods. I'm still learning and soaking it up. I've been investing for 4.5, 5 years. I've lent on maybe ballpark, maybe 170, 180 loans, something like that. So the business has been productive, and we can get into more detail later, maybe about how all that came into being and how it's played out.
Yep.
But I want to meet the new investors. I want to meet you and see, in the more veteran season. Fred and Marie, when I called them up, he said, absolutely, sure, let's meet together. They realize that you have something to offer too, and that's part of the formula, part
Mhm.
of it, that you have something to offer too. Even though you're new, you know something, you have some talent, some skill, you already have some group of people, whether they're investors or not. You have something to bring to the table, and when you think, I'm nervous about doing this or that, you're totally negating your own personal worth.
That's
You
right.
are valuable, you've got something to offer. Ask questions, because through your questions I can learn. I don't know all the answers, and it helps me to learn too. So a key
Great
to
point.
to uh to networking, well, I don't even like to use the term networking, because it has a little small word in the middle of it that I don't like. Work. Just stay away from work.
Yep.
I mean, now when I say I don't like work, I'm talking, there's always effort involved. You have to put forth an effort. Uh, but that's the key to all of this. So people want to meet you. And if you don't reach out to them, they're missing out. That's the way I feel. If people don't reach out to me, I am missing something. So it's mindset. It's all about mindset. If you want to if you want to experience massive achievement, a lot of growth, and you want to compress the time frame. Now, if you want to take 50 years like I did, feel free. Don't meet people too much, or meet people having the wrong mindset. My mindset was a selfish mindset. What can you do for me?
Yep.
Once I got to a point just a few years ago where that totally switched, 180-degree turn, and there were a couple of books involved in that, the business just accelerated. Uh, but yeah, keep in mind the self-limiting beliefs. I mean, we could talk all day about that. Whenever you hold a thought that weakens you, any thought, it's a self-limiting belief. Well, I'm nervous. Boom, self-limiting belief. You might feel a little queasy, you might feel a little anxious. You dismiss it and you take action. So watch out for those I'm shy. Self-limiting belief. It's weakened you. Hold only thoughts that strengthen you. That's the only thought you have in your mind. So when that negative thought, when that self-limiting thought, well, I'm a little nervous about calling someone, the first thing to do is pick up the phone and dial the number. Overcome. Yes, I can do this. I have something to offer, and I have a lot to learn.
Absolutely amazing. I love that. And Chuck, you exemplify it in every conversation you have, in everything you do. I can't tell you how many times I do self-deprecating jokes sometimes just to lighten the mood sometimes.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I don't mean what I say, most of the time, right? But you always say, stop right there, and you say, don't say that. And you're right. Even um, your words are so powerful. What you listen to, what you read, and even just what you speak into the universe, it's so powerful. So, yeah, you exemplify it. You don't just say it. This isn't just, you read it in a book and you just say it to people. You 100% try to help other people with that, because you're right. That's something that I struggle with early on was, um, I didn't start networking for 2 to 3 years into real estate. And my first conference was Dealmaker. And that's when everything shifted.
Boom.
It turned into everything. And you also exemplify, um, how important networking is. And we'll get into networking and
Okay.
all that. But one thing I do want to do before we move deeper into your story is highlighting how long it took you to find real estate. And I think in Dealmaker, what you really did to a lot of people in that room, how you really affected people was showing people that it's never too late to find your passion, never too late to find your purpose. And that's what really hit me. I mean, Chuck, you had hundreds of grown, successful real estate investors laughing, crying, inspired, energized. I'd be lying if there wasn't a tear or two really trying to get out of my eye. And even I was telling you, after that night, I saw my family and I was telling them all about it, because your story hits home to me because of a couple people in my life who've struggled their whole life trying to find their passion and their purpose. And I think that's what you really did there. How does that, like, can you kind of speak on that for this audience? Because you obviously spoke on that for that audience. But if I could get this audience to know it's never too late, it's never too late to find your passion or your purpose, then I think both of us are doing a great job at helping people.
If you don't mind my going back, not in a lot of detail,
Please,
about 50 years.
please. Yep.
People say, wow, I talk about, well, to preface my forthcoming remarks is right now, I've been in real estate, give or take 5 years, 4.5 to 5 years
Mhm.
as a private money lender. And when I started off, when I first decided, I met that one guy. Yes, I'm a friend. I went out and took Fred and Marie out to lunch and all. I said, this is what I can do. I can be private money lender. There was only one catch. I didn't have much money. That could have been a self-limiting belief. What I did was realize all I had to do was find some people that did have money.
Mhm.
And I could put my little bit of money in with their lot of money, and I could be a private money lender. That's how it got started as far as lending, because I didn't have much.
Mhm.
Since then, just to kind of encapsulate,
Yeah.
I'm now at a point where I am uh, traveling, enjoying. I'm living the life now that I dreamed about living for 50 years.
Amen.
Uh, and it happened in 4.5 and 5 years. And people say, wow, you've accomplished this massive achievement, the formula for massive achievement. You've done this achievement in like 5 years. No, it's taken 55 years. Now
Mhm.
that takes me to more specifically answer your question. Back in the day, while I was a school teacher, one dream I had was to have my own business. I knew nothing about business. I was a school teacher. Nobody in my family had ever been in business. It was just, I want to make money.
Yep.
Um, so I tried 3 businesses along the way. I didn't lose anything, didn't make anything. Again, half-hearted attempts if my whole heart wasn't into it. So for decades, I had this dream. I didn't have goals. I didn't even know about really setting these smart goals, right?
Right.
I just knew I wanted to make money. You did it by starting a business. You had a dream. So I did 3 attempts at it. Didn't make much. Still living the dream. Henry David Thoreau write a statement that haunts me, or has haunted me in the past, not anymore, about people, masses of men living lives of quiet desperation.
Love it. Yep.
Wanted more, didn't really have a clue as to really how to get there. Had the mindset that I was a victim mentality, sparsity mindset. Well, who could I find to do something for me, to help me in my business? And it was really a selfish approach. But one thing I did do is back in the day, in my 20s, and it continued into my 30s and my 40s, I done away with newspapers and TV news, and I started reading books. I read all the old classics. I was reading them back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The Magic of Thinking Big, the Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon, See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar, Psycho-Cybernetics, As a Man Thinketh, and there are others, the Dale Carnegie books, Win Friends and Influence People, a couple of other Napoleon Hill books. I was reading those continually, and some of them over and over. Even to this day, 50 some years later, I still go back and read The Magic of Thinking Big. For me personally, that book, even when I read it 50 years ago, give or take, for the first time, was what I call a transformational book.
Oh yeah.
For other people, it's going to be a different book, but it's going to be that book that strikes you to your soul. I learned something from all of the books. You know, you accumulate the knowledge. So this mindset thing, this mindset thing didn't happen in 5 years.
Right.
Planting and watering and planting and watering and planting and watering. The second transformational book that I read was the Bible. Absolutely transformational.
100%.
And a particular verse is Proverbs 19, verses 20 and 21. And I'm not going to quote it, but the idea of it is get around wise people, be in the presence of wisdom, listen, learn, and then develop the discipline to apply what you've learned. And when I did that, started doing that, and my purpose aligned with God's purpose, boom, the world changed. And this was what was happening about 5 years ago. The third transformational book that I came across was about 5.5 years ago. The gentleman you talked about just a moment ago, Stephen Glover, my son,
Yeah.
he was just starting into real estate investing himself. And he was saying, Dad, you know, I think I got something. I think I'm on to something. Let me share a book with you. And I said, sure. Okay. He gave me a copy of Cash Flow Quadrant.
Oh, great book.
Transformational book number 3. And again, all of these books helped. You learn, educate yourself. These books, when I say transformational, I mean they touch you down, they strike a chord down deep.
Absolutely.
Then, although these businesses I had tried, and I'll talk more about that word later. I don't like that word, but I tried over the years, didn't go anywhere. The reason is trying is opens the door to failure. Just thinking about trying something opens the door to failure. But so we're doers. But I read this book, and I kind of did that V8 thing. You know what?
Yep.
Where was this book 40 years ago?
Yep.
For the first time, down in my heart, knowing if I start focusing on how I can help other people, and that's where the notion of rap lending comes in.
Oh yeah.
There's something to this. And so I started my real estate journey, and it's very, very successful so far. So I don't know if it really answered your question or not, but that's
Certainly
kind of the
did.
background, the journey. How did the real estate come into play?
Oh, certainly. No, I mean, it's you're hitting all the points I've needed you to hit. Again, I'm trying to
Oh.
get your message out there. Yeah. And you know, one thing, it's interesting you brought up try versus do. I'm writing notes over here because I have so much I like to get to with you. But try versus do, that was something that hit me during the your presentation that even today. So I guess the Glovers have two things that I'm constantly taking with me every single day I go to work. And one is try versus do, because I used to always say we're going to try our best. And literally, I still find myself saying it. And every time I say it, Chuck is in the back of my head saying, no, that's not what you have to say. You're going to be, you're going to do, you're a doer, you're not a trier. And that's, again, speaking the right things, thinking the right things, making sure that you're actually attracting the right mentality, the positivity to your life, doing instead of trying. Because you're right, trying is going to open up two doors. There's success and failure. But when you do, there's only one door there for you.
And that's the, because if I were to ask, if we could see a group of people watching, and I would ask, how many of you are trying to find a deal or trying to get that financing or trying to, lots of hands would go up, because it's just a natural part of our vocabulary. And that's where the years and years of focusing your mindset come into play. When we, instead of saying, I'm trying to find a deal, the way to think about that is, I am making calls, I am driving for dollars, I am getting on wholesalers lists. So what you're saying is actions you are taking and eliminate. So yes, that's where the doing comes in. So eliminating the word try. Going back to what you said, I did my best, or I'm trying my best. Think about every time you've used that phrase, well, I did my best. It's because you didn't achieve something.
Yep.
If you're in the process of working
So
and you're
true.
saying, well, I'm doing my best, that indicates that it isn't working out so far. So
Yes.
if you eliminate this whole idea, don't do your best. Don't ever do your best. Do everything it takes. That's what you do. Brandon didn't get where he's at right now because you did your best. You are where you are right now, and continuing to grow and just blow the doors off this business because you are doing everything it takes.
That's very kind. And the more I can continue to wrap that in my life, keep that in my life, is the more successful I know I'm going to be. And
I'll
you're
give you
such
I'll
a
give
good
you a
example.
sentence. I'll give you a little sentence to think. If Because it can be tough. There are some tough days. Let's not negate the fact that there are challenges, and
Certainly.
that's the good news. If it weren't hard, now everybody listen to this, you can put your name in the blank. If it weren't hard, there would be no blank. If it weren't hard, there would be no Brandon Lindsay.
Hmm.
If it weren't hard, there would be no Chuck Glover.
Right.
And put your name in there. If it weren't hard, there would be nothing there for any of us.
I love that. That's so good. I love that.
Uh,
Where did you find, is that man-made? Did you make that yourself? If it weren't hard,
I
but
come up with that for Dealmaker, yeah.
fantastic.
But it isn't. And credit, thank you for asking that. Credit where credit is due. That Dealmaker presentation that you mentioned, that you thought something about, was bathed in prayer. That wasn't Chuck Glover just coming up with something. It was bathed in a lot of prayer. So giving credit where credit is due. This little sentence, did I come up with it? I am indicating that the Holy Spirit came up with that. That there's a spirit, and it's in us. I'm not talking about a weird kind of a do thing.
Right.
We're imbued. Christians are imbued with the Spirit, and if we tap into that Spirit and allow it to work through us. So I just throw that out there. Credit where credit is due. I'm an ordinary guy that has an opportunity to live a life I've dreamed of for a long time, thanks to God and lots of spiritual strength.
Well, as a God, I mean, as a God, as a Christian, that's so fun. As a Christian, this is all made by God. Everything we do, everything, and all we have to do as Christians is surrender ourselves, eliminate the ego, eliminate the self, and connect with God. And after that, I can take it in three different directions, but the best direction and the most important direction is our faith, because I agree. I remember, um, I don't know if it was before or after my presentation, I went up to you, I think it was before, and I said, Chuck, you gave me a lot to live up to because you spoke a couple days before. And you said, just stand tall, let it fly. And it's so funny. That was my prayer for the whole week, was stand tall and kind of just let God work through me. Right. And I know that's what you did up there as well. So it's so funny. You said basically the exact words of what my prayer was all week was, God, just let me stand tall, work through me, and see if I can touch one or two people in this room, you know?
And Brandon, for people, and there will be some people dial in to the podcast that don't share necessarily that belief.
Sure.
I understand that, and I can relate to that, because I haven't always had that belief myself, so I can relate to that. The idea is, regardless of whether or not you're tuned into that spirit or to God. Regardless, the principles are still the same. All the principles are there. It's focus on others. In fact, a lot of what I'm thinking and doing over the past 5 years is based on Zig Ziglar's comment from that I read 50 years ago in the See You at the Top. And everybody probably here has heard it. If you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want, or you will have what you want. And that's really, so regardless of the spiritual aspect of it, the principles are all the same.
That's a Christian principle. Yeah. Helping your neighbor, loving
Yeah.
your neighbor. Yeah. It's funny. We're not, people always get nervous to turn things into a spiritual conversation, I guess, but I don't,
Good.
I relate to you relating to others who potentially might not have that as part of their life. It was not always part of my life. I was a dumb kid for years. And I don't even want to talk about how many years, but for a long time. But as soon as I accepted Jesus and I really built my relationship with God was transformative. And like you said, read the Bible. Well, I'm in the process of still reading the Bible cover to cover, long book, right? But that is as transformative.
A lifetime book.
It's a lifetime book, and I'm going to read it over and over, just as much as every other book that I find beneficial to me. So I love it, Chuck. I think that's a very important part because I look at it as opening up a window when we talk about our faith, is we're not pushing it on anybody, but we're opening up that window. It's not a door, right? Doors open and close. I heard this expression somewhere and I loved it. But a window is saying, hey, look, if you ever are curious and want to talk to one of us about it, please, the window's open. If it was a door, maybe that door shuts, but we leave it open for other people to potentially explore it if they ever want to.
Yeah. Well said.
Fantastic. Well, I want to do one more thing before we move into more present day stuff of your story.
Okay.
Because the one part that really hits home to me is people who are late in their life. Say I have a family member or two, just hypothetically, right, that are still trying to find their purpose and their passion. We talked about reading books. That might be a great piece of advice. We talked about networking. I think that's also a fantastic piece of advice. We talked about faith. So maybe we're really hitting everything already. But if you could encourage somebody like that to really find their purpose and their passion, what would you say to people like that?
In just one little brief sentence, don't ever quit. And regardless, the direction you take may not be the one that turns out. Like I said, I had 3 earlier attempts through the years of a business that I really didn't make anything at. Half-hearted attempts, admittedly. And I don't look back and say, wow, I failed at that business. I just look back and say, well, there's something else. Okay, this one isn't taking me where I'd planned, so there's something else. And so 3 years later, another opportunity comes by. Their opportunities are I'll get an illustration of this. I was with an organization, and the CEO, this was in the 80s, sends out an email. It says, times are tough. We're going to have to, change the way we operate. We're going to be learning to do more with less. And at the end of this email, it was a broadcast email to the entire organization. At the end of the email, he puts a sentence: if anyone, has suggestions to offer, responses, respond to me personally. So you didn't have to go through the gatekeeper secretary. Well, I responded to him personally. And what I commented on was, instead of using the phrase doing more with less, use the phrase, now this is getting right to your question, do more with different.
I like
If
that.
you think of doing more with less, boom, negative. It's a limiting belief. It's
Really good. Yeah.
it's a weakening thought. It weakens people. And if you're weak in an entire organization of 7,000 people, you're demoralizing an organization of 7,000 people, and you're the head of the thing. That's, I didn't say all this. I was tactful, but I'm thinking, be real. What's this about? And I said, do more with different, because there are resources. Everybody here right now, we have resources all around us and we don't know about them because
Mhm.
we haven't had to tap into them. When you lose jobs and you lose your home and you lose your car, and because of an unstable financial situation, you lose your marriage. When you're there, you better start looking around for some resources. You better think differently than what's the Albert Einstein, the mind that got you in this situation isn't going to get you out of it, or something to that
Perfect.
effect.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There are resources all around us. We don't have a clue because we haven't had to tap into them. So don't wait till you get desperate. Look around you, open your eye. And that's where the books and the mindset, and this is where it all comes in. It opens your vision to stuff around you that you don't see. Anyway, it wasn't long after that for some reason I was no longer with that organization. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I didn't get fired, but
Sure.
in this situation, it wasn't a good match. But
Wasn't a good fit. Yeah.
do more with different, and that's a strengthening mindset instead of a weakening mindset.
I love that. I honestly, I don't hear that advice very often. You know, when you're looking to um, do more with different. I think that's such a perfect way to go about making change in your life. And you answer that question perfectly. I think we gave people a lot of really good tools to find their purpose and their passion. It's honestly a passion to me to help other people find their passion or their purpose because I think people look at it in a very narrow box, right? They think, oh, my purpose is like, I bet you if you asked a bunch of like 10 different people who don't know their purpose, what they think their purpose is. You know, it probably sound very similar in a way in the way that it's like very vague. I want to help people and do this. It's like, no, like really think about what your purpose is and start thinking different. Don't think of what all these people have taught you your purpose should be. You know, like really, and that's where self-reflection and I think networking, reading becomes all like I think we gave them a big um, toolbox of different pieces that they can use to help find their purpose.
And that's a very well stated. Well stated. That's a very individual thing.
Yeah.
I had to find where I was wanting to go in life. I mean, I kind of had a vague idea of where I wanted to go in life. I wanted money.
Hmm.
You know what really changed when I talked about a few years ago that mindset kind of switched when I stopped focusing on my
Yeah.
income started growing because I started focusing not on the little bit of money I had. I started focusing, which is a sparsity mindset.
Hmm.
I started focusing on an abundance mindset. And what that is that shifts your thinking, like what we just were talking about, resources all around us that we don't know about because we haven't had to look for them.
Hmm.
An abundance mindset, it's all around us. Money's flowing like a river, and all we have to do is step into the stream. Uh, but the idea is when I started giving the little bit of money I had, I started giving a little bit to my church. I started giving a little bit here. I started giving my time here because I started thinking in an abundance, not like I don't have much to give, but I have so much to give. And that's when my income, that's when my business is just
Took
massive achievement. That's when it started shifting, when my focus shifted. And I'm talking about uh, genuinely shifted, not like I'm fooling myself into thinking. It's like when it genuinely shifted, the whole everything shifted. The trajectory just shifted.
I think that's fantastic. Have you read the book Go Giver? The
No, I haven't. I've heard a lot about it. I haven't read it.
It's a great book. It's a very simple read, so you'll get through it in like a couple days. It's like a kind of just a story. It reminds me of Richest Man in Babylon, how it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a story. But it's about a rich man and a poor man, and I haven't read it in a while, but essentially the poor man's like asking, how do you become rich? And he's just like, go give, go give. He's like, I got nothing to give. He's like, you'll find something, go give. And
Boom, boom.
everything changed. Yeah, and things start flowing to him naturally. And that's the way the universe works. And again, going back to Christianity, the Bible, that's a big, big part of it too, is just making sure whatever you give is essentially what you're going to be expecting to receive and in abundance. And I
Yes.
think
Multiplied.
multiplied, yep, exponentially. And I think it's also important about surrounding yourself with the right people. People can network, but network with the wrong people. Wouldn't you agree? And then they end up in like a room full of people with a scarcity mindset. And people are kind of in there really just trying to knock the other person down so they can get up. And that's why I love Dealmaker. I love the groups that we're a part of. Everybody in there is truly there to help the other person. Wouldn't you agree?
I just I was speaking just within the past month to a gentleman who owns a couple of tow truck businesses,
Okay.
and I know of another person who owns a tow truck business in another town, which is about 30 miles away.
Hmm.
And I mentioned to this person, call so and so. They own a tow truck. But the person I was talking to was brand new in the business. He is just getting it started. This other tow truck business owner had been in the business for 10, 15 years. And I said, why don't you give so and so a call and just talk with them? Maybe they can, share some tips, give you some advice, help you along the way. And his comment was, well, that's my competition. Now, that's a natural thought.
Sure.
That's what many, many people out here, that's what we're thinking. That's a sparsity mindset. I have to get mine
Hmm.
at their expense. So I just commented, instead of thinking about it as a competition, thinking about it as a collaboration,
Hmm.
that you and this other tow truck owner may have opportunities going forward to actually do business together, to support each other and to assist each other. And I mean, I don't know how, I don't know anything about tow truck operations, but it's the mindset. It goes back to the mindset. Think abundance. There's bunches out here for both of us. And if we work together, boom, boom. But yeah, the deal maker room is 260 investors were in that room, and I can't speak for all of them, but far and away the majority have that mindset. It's about collaboration. We're not there to compete. We're there to raise each other up, lift each other up, share with each other, because there's such an abundance all around us.
Absolutely. It's a great time to even shout out to Jim Ingersoll for putting on that event. For people who are looking for a good event, Dealmaker, I think he just put out the dates for 2025. I think it's in March, mid-March again. So
18th through the 21st, something like that. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. And for everybody, I even talked to a few people who are new to this Dealmaker. And I was new to Dealmaker, I think in 2020. So I want to say that was your first one too.
My first year,
Yeah.
2020.
And I've never missed one. One year I could only come to one day, which kind of stunk. But because when you walk out of that event, you are transformed. Absolutely. Your energy, your motivation, your insight. It's just a next level event. And it almost makes you get nervous of going to other big events because you're like, there's no way they could all be like this. But of course, I'm sure there are. And I do know some that are just there to sell you a bunch of stuff. And that's not what Dealmaker is. It's really there for people to help each other. So, anyway, shout out to Jim for putting on that great event.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And there are people at Dealmaker. It's here in Richmond, and we kind of take local things for granted.
Hmm.
Dealmaker is a national event. People
Absolutely.
come from all over the country
Hmm.
here to Richmond to come to Dealmaker. And if we have it right here in our town, those of us who are local, I know people tuned in are from all over the place, but those are here in Richmond and don't come. That goes back to the mindset: abundance versus sparsity. But Brandon, it costs to register for Dealmaker costs like $600 a person, a little less, $595, whatever, a person. That's a lot of money. Do you know? It's from about 2020 was my first Dealmaker. From that day that I attended, that's 3 days I attended Dealmaker, my business blew up. probably over the next year, 75% of my business come from people in that room. So it's the matter of being, that's why I use the phrase be in the room. It's an investment. I don't know how many multiples of $500 for my attendance at Dealmaker that first year that have come back to me. And
Such
if
a
that
good
much
point.
has come back to me because I'm lending to other investors who are making even more money,
Mhm.
the whole sum of money that has income that has been made by levels of people is exponential. It's probably uh, a couple million or more from
Certainly.
that one investment.
Such a good point. When you put it in those terms, it's kind of dumb not to go, right? I can swear by that too. Not only that, but Inner Circle, also run by Jim Ingersoll. So he gets two shout outs from us. But those two things I commonly say are two of the best decisions I've made for my business. It's taken my business exponentially to the next level. And I have like two to three different verticals of what I do. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
all three verticals. It takes me to the next level every single time. And even if it didn't, like the energy, the motivation, the people you're around, just being able to sit up there and watch Chuck give you information about how he made it to this point. And Tom's up there and Jim's up there and Daniel's up there. You just got all these people that you want to be in that room. You want to be around that energy.
Oh
It's
yeah, and Allie Murphy and Courtney Frick. I mean,
oh,
this
we
the
could keep
Leon
going.
Johnson. It just
Adam, Leon, the whole
man.
family. Yeah, it's next level. I was gonna wear my Dealmaker shirt. I'm wearing my Rehab Valuator shirt, but I wore that on Monday. I was showing it off, so that's in the laundry. But yeah, it's fantastic. I'm glad we gave that shout out because that's kind of also why both of us are right here, right
Yes.
now, talking on this call, and hopefully we're able to help other people with their success because of what that has brought us to be able to do, you know.
And again, a specific example of that is after my presentation at Dealmaker, the next day, uh, Pam Fisher came to me and said, people are asking, how did you do what you've done? Blah, blah, this rap lending thing. Let's put together a 2-hour Zoom call where you explain your process step by step, what you've done. Because people are asking her, a couple people asked me. I never thought anything about it. But Pam, being the entrepreneur, I'm not entrepreneurially minded. She is. So she came up with the idea. So we submitted it, a 2-hour Zoom session on wrap lending, the basics of wrap lending. And I didn't have trouble putting it together, but she did the technical stuff. How do you use Zoom? I didn't even use Zoom as a presenter. So she put that together. But this is because of Jim Ingersoll giving me a shot. Why? My first reaction when he asked me to speak at Dealmaker a couple months before Dealmaker, my first reaction was, I wonder what other speaker canceled out. That was how I was self-limiting belief.
Sure.
Do I really have anything to contribute?
That's funny.
And that's so you dismiss that thought and think, okay, I guess I do have something to contribute, so let's get busy and put it together. But we put together the Zoom call and we submitted it for the auction to benefit Share the Love.
Oh, beautiful.
uh,
Yeah.
it bid up to $1,600 that somebody's going to pay to be on the phone, the Zoom call with me for 2 hours. And after the auction was over with, and Pam, we were talking about, I said, Pam, that's way too much money. That doesn't even make sense. And I said, let's do this. Go back. Two people bid $1,600. Let's go back to those two people and said, let's make it $650. So that's $1,000 less. And what we'll do is we'll open it up to a maximum of 20 people. And we did that. And we had 19 people sign up at $650 a person for 2 hours Zoom call on how to basics of wrap lending. So that's $13,000, give or take, that went to charity. It wasn't any to me. It was all for Share the Love. $13,000 went to Share the Love, thanks to Jim Ingersoll and
How
the opportunities he provides. And your presentation was amazing all that you bring to the table. And it was talked about. Your presentation was talked about a good bit. And I don't remember if I mentioned anything to you about it afterwards, but that was just exceptional. Anyway,
Yeah.
and Jim made all that possible. That's the idea of giving. And since then, I've had 5 other opportunities to do speaking things and stuff just in the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's how things just, the trajectory is incredible.
It's exponential.
Be in the room. Just be in the room.
Yep. It's funny. So is that your first time speaking to a group like that? Like what's your speaking background before Dealmaker?
That is the first time speaking to a group like that. It's my first time speaking to a group of real estate investors, a group of business people. I have had opportunities to do presentations before for small groups.
Sure.
As a school administrator, once in a while, maybe 4 or 5 times over the period of 14 years, I was asked to come to a PTA meeting and speak. I got to share this with you. One was Blackwell Elementary School in Richmond, city of Richmond, Virginia. I went and I was the speaker at a PTA meeting. There were 10 people in the room. It was a dark, rainy night. The 10 people in the room. About halfway through my little 30-minute presentation, 5 of them got up and left the room. Well, so there were 5 people left. So after it was all over with, I talked to the principal. I said, "Did I say something? What was going on?" She said, "No, you did fine." The school, just outside the front door of the school, was a bus stop. And some of the people in the room were simply in there to get out of the rain. So when it was time for the bus to come, they went out to catch them. So that's my speaking. PTA meetings, and there were 3 or 4 instances where educational conferences where teachers and administrators come together for a conference. And I spoke at groups of maybe 20, 25 people. Never business people, never anything like 260 people in a room, never before.
Well, I can guarantee you, I'm sure you know this, but I was in the back during your presentation, and not a single person left that room while you were talking. And you were at the end of the day too. So at the end of the day, people are getting tired. It's like, where's dinner? It's time to get home, and not a single person left. That's funny.
Thanks for that. Thanks.
I'll tell you what, with that background, with what you did at that event, I mean, it's amazing. And when you take advantage of those opportunities, that's when your success really exponentially grows. It's funny, my background was speaking because I started the playbook, of course, so I talk with my group. But how I got into speaking was Ray Ferguson. You know Ray.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
talking with me at Dealmaker in 2023, so just last year. And we're just chatting, and he's talking to somebody next to me. I forget who it was, about how they don't have a speaker for next month. And I said, "I'll do it." And he goes, "You'll speak?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll speak. Jim wants me to say something here." And I've never told you this story, and Jim, honestly, I think rightfully so, has never brought it up since. But he offered for me to say something in 2023 about the playbook, and I chickened out. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, I was like, not present, right? But in the middle of presenters,
Yeah.
like, why don't you say something? And I was like, I don't feel ready for that. I've never spoken in front of anybody at that point. So after I chickened out,
Wow.
it's like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity with Ray. And the next month was my first event. After that, I probably spoken at a dozen plus different small events, and then a conferences. And I just got invited today to another conference. So it's funny just how it grows off that. And it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning when you're like, are you nervous to do these things? Of course you're going to be nervous. Doing anything new is going to be nerve-wracking. But one of the biggest feedbacks I got after Dealmaker was how comfortable I looked. And I was like, I wish you knew how uncomfortable I really felt up,
Yes.
but that's, again, just kind of let it fly.
And it raised me up where you said that was your first kind of foray into speaking. You did a great job. I remember that night I was
That's
there and
right.
you did a great job.
I remember you there. Yeah,
Absolutely. You can be scared to death. It's okay. It's where you just don't let a weakening thought stop you. You hold a strengthening thought that you have something to contribute, even though you're nervous and all. And talk about, I can relate to what you're saying, Brandon, about stepping outside your comfort zone.
mhm,
Big time, big time out of the comfort zone. You go for it.
absolutely. And then you just have to remember what is the potential beyond that, right? What is the potential of you actually doing this and killing it? Not even killing it. Like when I did Raise, I did feel like I put together a good presentation. But if I was to tell people things that were kind of funny about it, I was wearing this shirt, Chuck. It's so funny. And this shirt kind of hugs me a little tight. It was hot in that room, and I run warm. If I lifted up my
Oh,
arms, you would see how nervous I was. So, but after that, it gets more comfortable, more comfortable. You speak in front of more people. And that's real effect that you can actually place in other people's lives. And that's next level. There's a difference between running a business and being successful, helping people in your small circle. Now you're really expanding your circle with people you can help. That's rewarding in itself. I don't even have to get paid for that. We're not paid for these
yeah.
things, but I don't have to get paid for that. That is something that pays me in my heart, if that makes sense, right?
Brandon, since you mentioned it, the first thought I had when you started talking about other things, other engagements, and other things is what you're going to find is you use the very term next level. What you're going to find is as you progress, as you grow, your circle is going to change. Um,
Yes.
it's you're going to move to you're going to move your business is going to move to new levels if you're willing first to move yourself to a new level, then your business will follow. It isn't like my business is going to move up and then I'll do whatever. Move yourself to the next level. Get into rooms that intimidate you. Now, that's a weakening thought, by the way. So you dismiss that thought and say, I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to be in this room now, and
Yes.
then this room and this room. And all of a sudden you find yourself, and I have found myself here. And I say that's above my level, I have found myself. And that's really where you want to find yourself. When you're in a room with people who don't talk in terms of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, they talk in terms of millions of dollars, then you're on a path that's leveling up your business, because to think like that, you level yourself up. And that's where the watering and planting the seeds and watering the seeds of thought and strengthening thoughts, that's where it all comes in. To level up, your business will follow.
Beautifully said. And that, I mean, I feel like we're relating on a lot of things here because one of the things I noticed at Dealmaker or with the whole Dealmaker experience was a couple nights before we had a dinner for the speakers. And I remember looking around and being like, these are all the people I've looked up to for years. And now I'm sitting at the table with them and they're talking about these big loans they're putting out and all this stuff. And the self-limiting belief, of course, is kind of going to creep in. I'm like, do I belong here? Like, what do I have to say? But it's putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions and just trusting it. And I don't even like saying it because it always makes me say all glory to God, right? Like I have to say, I'm not
Always.
bragging. This is 100% me, like surrendering to that and saying, you just take me where I need to go to affect more people. And that's where I ended up in that room somehow, which was really cool.
And do you realize, they're not to call names and all, but around that table, most everybody out of those maybe 20 people or so around that table, most, I won't say all of them, far and away the majority of them are multimillionaires.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're there, and all of a sudden you find yourself at new levels
Yes.
and thinking in terms, because you hear them talk, it raises your thinking in terms of new levels. And that's how you do it. To be in the room, you were in the room.
I was just about to bring that up. I was in one room that brought me to another room, and I could have easily been like, I don't know if I have much to relate to with these people. Like They are multimillionaires. I got to be honest to everybody on here. I'm not on their level yet, but being in that room gives me the best opportunity to be on their level for sure. Well,
And
man,
these people, the interesting part is these people who are at this level, once you uh, once they have an opportunity to meet you and know you, they will actually call upon you at some point in time to
yeah,
come and speak at their events or for advice or something. And I can relate to what you're saying. They're calling me.
I
They
know.
want me to do something.
That's
And the answer, of course, is always going to be yes, because you want to stay outside your comfort zone
yep.
trajectory.
It's funny. You can say yes months out, and then as it's approaching, those thoughts kind of come in. You're like, man, am I in above my head? I
Yep.
remember the night before or day before I saw you, and I was like, is your presentation ready? And you're just like, well, I keep tweaking it. I keep doing this. And it's so funny because after watching your presentation, I'm like, whatever tweaks he did were perfect, you know. But you always have those thoughts like, am I in above my head? Is this where I'm supposed to
Yep.
be? But when that opportunity presents itself and you feel nervous, I think that's the best sign to say, go for it, you know?
Brandon, if I may give you another specific incident
Mhm.
of the resources around us that we don't see,
Please.
they're there. Unless we open our eyes, of course, open our mind's eye to looking for resources, doing more with different. The night before the first day of Dealmaker, I had an opportunity we were going to dinner, and Leon Johnson and Courtney Frick rode with me. I said, come ride with me. I know I'm here in Richmond. I know my way around. So they rode with me. So we were in a car together. I was in a car with Leon Johnson and Courtney Frick,
Great people.
successful investors. I mean, I won't go into their personal finance stuff, but they're successful investors. They have their own podcast. They have their own meetups and their own systems and so on. We're networking systems and so on. Masterminds. That's the word I'm looking for. They have their own mastermind. And I had them in the car with me for like 20 minutes, just us. And it was Tuesday was the first day of Dealmaker. This was Monday night. And I said, Courtney, she's on radio shows. She has her own radio show.
I
She
saw that.
does podcasts. She interviews tremendously successful investors from all over the country. I said, now tomorrow, I'm giving my presentation tomorrow afternoon. What tips what do you do this all the time? What tips do you have? Her and Leon, they speak at lots of places, and they for 15 minutes they shared with me tips and ideas and stuff. That night after the meal, they were back to the hotel. I was home. I went back through my my PowerPoint presentation for Tuesday afternoon and removed. I had about 50 slides in my PowerPoint presentation. I removed about 20 of them based on their suggestions.
Wow.
And it turned, well, you know how it turned out. I was overwhelmed by the response. It turned out better. I was there right there. Now we could have chatted about the weather.
Hmm.
We could have just whatever,
Yep.
but I opened my mind to this resource right here, captive audience in my car. And that had a lot, Courtney's advice in particular had a lot to do with the material that I actually did present Tuesday afternoon at Dealmaker. So that's a specific example of the formula for massive achievement. May I take just a minute with that?
Please do. Yeah, I think it'd be perfect to cap off the whole conversation with that. Tell us about that, your formula, and what team-based investing really means to you.
Team-based investing. The formula is, and picture this as like a math formula.
Mhm.
It's a math formula that's representative of a concept. It isn't like you actually put in numbers. It's a representation,
Yep.
but it's OPM plus OPR, and we'll go back to what these mean in a moment, plus OPK to the power of A. Now let's do that part first. OPM, as most people know, other people's money.
Correct.
OPR, other people's resources. Because people can do a whole lot for you that has nothing to do with money. Just
Yep.
like Courtney Frick's advice to me on my presentation. Boom, boom. OPK, other people's knowledge, to the power of A. What that means is the power, knowledge is multiplied by application.
That's right.
Knowing something is not enough. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied is power. And
Perfect.
the degree to which it's applied, it exponentially increases its power. Times other OPTI, other people's time, times OPTA, other people's talents. So other people's money, other people's resources, other people's knowledge to the degree it's applied, times other people's time and other people's talents, minus E. The E is your excuses.
I love it.
You can have 100 there or you can have 0 there, but whatever it is, it takes away from all the rest.
100%.
It can actually negate everything else.
Yep.
Eliminate but minus E equals MA. So minus excuses equals massive achievement.
That is
So
so perfect.
that's the idea of the formula. Team based, and this is where the team based investing comes in, because we think of other people. You and I'll use you and I as an example.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking other people. I'm thinking Brandon. He's the other person. I can go to him for resources, money, time, talent, knowledge, or whatever. He's the other person. But guess who the other person is to you, Brandon? Me. So it's not just like a selfish view of you're looking at everybody else as other people. You put yourself in that formula that you are the other person. You have, and maybe you don't have money. I
Mhm.
didn't have money when I started off, and not just a few $1,000 is all I had. And I was going to be a lender. But I knew people who had resources. I knew people who had time. I knew people who had talent. Shara Gregory was another one, Fred and Marie Krause. And they had knowledge that they were willing to share with me. So that's the formula for massive achievement: is you're the other person to somebody, and somebody is the other person to you. And that's where the collaboration all comes together. Massive achievement.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect that it reminds me of you like being in a Harvard classroom and like really writing it out and looking at it and being like, well, knowledge needs to be applied. And, that is such a perfect formula.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's fantastic. I'm going to put that formula in the description for this video when I post it. I'm going to put your information in it as well. And if people wanted to reach out to you, where could they find you?
Well, right now, at my email address is, as a result of Dealmaker, things are happening so quickly.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm hustling to get with a website designer. I've never had a website. We're designing a website, and we're putting out there a 2-hour Zoom session on wrap, specifically on wrap lending, explaining the basics of wrap lending, which is how I've multiplied my retirement income and
By the way, count me
my
in for that.
cash. Uh, but right now it's my email address until we get the website up and running. That's it. So it's Chuck dot Glover. That's CHUCK dot Glover, GLOVER 2, the number 2 at gmail.com. So it might be a couple of weeks before we get the website up, but things are happening quickly. So we're just going with it. Other people's resources. I'm reaching out to web designer. I'm reaching out to my son Stephen for some of his guidance, because he's
Oh, he would
been
have
there and done
great.
it.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Fantastic. I think you getting a website up is perfect. And again, count me in for anything about wrap lending. That's my next big move, or at least that's what I'm working on moving towards. So
good. Yeah.
still would like to take you out for coffee and pick your brain some more. And whenever you
Well,
have
you
training
have my
on it,
email address.
I do. I do. I
So
even have your phone number, Chuck. So
there you go.
I'll
So
bug
give
you
me a
as much as
call,
I
give me
need
an
to.
email, text, and we'll get together. I'd like that.
Absolutely. And if I can do anything for you, Chuck, honestly, completely, just let me know. With your success right now, who knows what it could be, but if you need help with the website, help with contacts, help with construction, you just let me know. I'd love to help out.
Fantastic. I'm going to take you up on that, because there
Please.
are opportunities coming my way that I could use some assistance with. I've never got into new construction before, so now I know a guy that knows it. You.
Beautiful. Yeah, anytime. Anytime. All right,
Yeah.
my
Well,
friend
thanks
Chuck.
so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, this is I think genuinely this is going to be something that touches a lot of people like deep down, sometimes we talk about real estate, sometimes we talk about other people's passions. Like I just talked to Brian Rhodes about his passion for health and longevity, and that's coming out very soon. We film that
Wonderful.
live in person, so it's a lot different than these Zoom calls. I think I have to stick to these Zoom calls. But we talk about all these different things, but this is and all of them are amazing. They're perfect. And Stevens was huge. I think that was so great. We talked about building businesses and just pure entrepreneurship because I don't know anybody who's more of a pure entrepreneur than Steven.
Oh, he
We
has
connect on
skyrocketed his
a
business.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah. And I don't know if well, this is worth another conversation. And my time's running up. But Chuck, again, I appreciate you so much. You have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you, sir.